Good afternoon, colleagues. We begin our briefings in Ukrainian Crisis Media Center with an interesting story about a unique art project, and it's about a unique and sad story related to this project. We have a founder of the Isolation Fund, Liubov Mykhaylova, and also director of communication of that fund, Ania Medvedeva, and they will tell you about that interesting art project in Donetsk and what happened to it. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I would like to remind you the story of our foundation. They told that it's sad. Yes, it's true. In June this year, the territory on which we had this foundation at Donetsk and the factory of isolation materials, DNR representatives captured that, and it is occupied. And the property of the foundation on property items and the collection, that is under the arrest. Because of that, we are trying to reach our government, and through different, we tried to communicate our story. It didn't work well. And to give any feedback to our story, we didn't succeed. Now we decided to bring this story outside of the country, and we organized an information exhibition just for one day on the 15th of December in Paris in the Arts Center Palais de Tokyo. That's an information exhibition because of two reasons. First of all, we had difficulties with communication, and it was difficult to communicate with the authorities, and it was difficult to reach and to tell them that the culture institution was captured and on the occupied territory. Culture institution suffers, and something should be done to that. The information exhibition has its goal to take the discussion outside of the country where the war is not declared, but in information war and warfare and aggression is quite destructive, and sometimes more destructive than real battles. The exhibition will provide information. There will be materials about story of the conflict, arrested artist, young artist from Donetsk, and terrorist, video interviews, audio records, materials which demonstrate how bright our projects were and what we did in Donetsk, and how we continue our story, our life and work in Kiev. What is Art Center, in which we want to broadly start a discussion? Liubov Mykhaylova will tell you about that, and I'll give the floor to her.
Hello, everybody. When this happened to us, when this sad thing happened to us, we are the cultural institution which was seized by the military people, and the military camp is now situated on this site where they train the militants, and there's also a military prison, and in the bomb shelter there's a lot of people whom we interviewed after their release. Anya started to try to tell you in a very soft way that we tried to contact our official law enforcement bodies. They said, contact your local police, and they were all in underground. You could find them only on Skype. So this was the reaction of the country and of the people who are responsible for this and responsible for protecting us. On the other hand, there was a colossal support from cultural institutions in our country, and even more from our friends abroad. The matter is that our cultural center, Isolation, works very broadly. We used to work in a very involving way, inclusive way, and we had a lot of young artists from the West. It created a lot of bridges, and those people who were following Isolation, they never had a question of choice, European choice or the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. It was a mission through modern forms of art and culture to somehow transform this society. Now, coming back to what we will do on the 15th of December in Paris, Palais de Tokyo is the major institution for modern art in France, and Palais de Tokyo was constructed in 1937 this is a group of modernist buildings that was built as an Expo International in 1937. After this, it went through a number of changes, and in 2002, there was a decision to create a Center for Modern Art, where, by the way, they don't have their own collection, in contrast to the Pompidou Center, so they gave 8,000 square meters to modern art and culture, where culture is it works is a communicator. There's a lot of programs connected to live processes, and since 2002, this is one of the biggest grounds for modern art in Europe. The director of Palais de Tokyo, Jean Deloisy, is a very well-known and cultural center person. He is of left outlook, and he is a proponent of equal access to culture. Last year, we were very proud that Palais de Tokyo has chosen our cultural center Isolation for cooperation from among all the cultural institutions on the post-Soviet space. So in October last year, we drew a plan of our cooperation, but the history has changed it, and there's a lot of friends that Palais de Tokyo has in the world. 2,000 to 6,000 people come to Palais de Tokyo every day, and we think that this is the number of people who will see us, and we invited a lot of our friends, and we hope that the topic that we introduce will explain to many people what is happening in the east of Ukraine. So this is what the exhibition is about.
I would like to add that we raised the issue of a role of culture under war, under the conflict. And during the exhibition, we'll show performances with the participation of Sergei Zakharov. He's one of the participants of the Murzilka group, and who created street art installations in Donetsk. And he was arrested for that by representatives of DNR, and he is cooperating with us. He was freed. We would like to use that resource, and also people who know well how to be on the other side of the conflict, how to be a victim of the conflict, and also we are an institution that suffered because of that regime in Donetsk. Here there was a presentation which we are going to take to Paris and to tell what we did in Donetsk in order to prevent the conflict, to make people active, to make them live, and also to inject that effort to critical thinking, to education, non-stop education, for communication. And many of our education projects and programs were directed at that. We wanted to involve people, for them to think and to assess the situation from different points of view. And in such a way, they would develop the perception, multifaceted perception. That's it. Maybe you have questions. Let me start with a question, and maybe my colleagues will join. There is a phrase of Churchill, who was brought to the budget and the reduction for culture. He told, what are we fighting for? For our culture. On the other hand, we understand that today the state cannot handle, even with those IDPs from your region. The government cannot help to all like it should be. Probably culture is not a priority. for our government, and not even the second. How do you see, how ideally would you like to see the situation? What place should culture take among in the government under these difficult circumstances? I completely agree with you, and it's clear that there is a war and people suffer. And first of all, people need to be provided with bread and housing. It's clear that that requires infrastructure. I will not criticize anyone. We see how the government is trying to do that. They are trying to solve problems artificially. The state, the government, we believe, should work on infrastructure. The program of IDP, they should create infrastructure. The same with the culture. There is a Ministry of Child Culture and lots of public institutions that regulate culture, but all those bodies, they play a game. We don't have war. We have ATO. That's why to help museums, culture institutions, galleries, and theaters there. We cannot help them there because we have an instruction from 1939 or 1954. We cannot write a new one because it's not. It's ATO. We see the role of the government. They want changes and also reforms, and people under the government should sit down and look at everything on the base of what they are working. It would be good to destroy everything as Carthage. We would like to build a new Ukraine, modern Ukraine. We cannot say that we are not working on culture because that's why we cannot work with on culture. Look at France with 300 history of culture, and it was captured many times. But even fascists were not able to destroy French culture because there was a foundation, because the nation is identified on the basis of culture and around the culture. That's the role of the government. But organizations like ours, we're just private organization, international foundation, and this is like a family foundation. Me as a philanthrope. And people who have money in the West, they don't belong to Forbes, list, and the status is determined by what they give to the society. Somebody supports dogs, pets, art, but every rich person who can share, they must do that, where they can invest not only money but also their efforts.
And then, of course, culture has the infrastructure of the state and the support of such initiatives. If we come back again to the pre-revolutionary laws, we have a law on charity activity. They have been a bit adapted to fit the Maidan, but we still cannot give a grant to any artist that is suffering a lot during the war. We have paid all the taxes, we have collected the money, and we want to help people. So the question is, on the one hand, we want changes, on the other hand, we need taxes, and then we need changes, but not very much. We want them. So the matter is how we treat the things. Will we repaint the tip of the iceberg in blue and yellow, or shall we melt it? Any other questions? I have a question. What's the major message that you want to convey to the world, to the Western world, and to the intellectuals who will attend the projects in Paris about Ukraine, about the situation in the occupied region? Well, our main message is Ukraine is a European country. It used to be a European country. It is now, and it will remain European country. Showing the history of our foundation, we want to show that the values of liberal democracy, of the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, in the milieu of young Ukrainians are the main values. We wanted to show using the example of our foundation, what has happened, that regrettably awful poverty and awful mono-industrialism of our region, where all the people from the post-Soviet state were transferred from Soviet economy to oligarch-led economy, when people did not have a choice to study, where they lived in poverty and illiteracy, led to what has happened. And we also have the aggressor, and we see that isolation was seized not by local people, but a group of Ossetian militants led by someone called Mongol. So there's a base where they train militants, and also the so-called emergency commission, the local KGB. They say that a lot of things happened there, including shooting people as a way of execution. So we want to show that we used to be a European country, not very well protected. We had bright spots of the wish to be in Europe, and as a result of this onslaught, we want to show where we are. We also want to say that culture can influence the society, but not at once. This is a long playing disc, and 20 years is too little, and we have done rather little. So we want to show the world that we are open and that we want to be in a civilized world. And the performance that we want to show is the set of playing cards where there are jays and kings and queens. They are members and figures of the Donetsk People's Republic, and a joker is Mr. Putin. And in the end of this performance, we think the card house will fall apart. Thank you for being the bright spot of Europe in your region, and we hope that there will be a response from Europe. If there are no questions, then thank you for your patience and the work that you do, and may success accompany you.